We have a. I gotta stay in water regulation. Not good. We have a. I gotta stay. How you doing, man? I gotta stay. How you doing? Water regulation. I gotta trim. It's getting way too long. Is it? I don't like it. Not on me anyway. Where'd you go?
You've always had it, right? Or last time I saw you?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Are you kidding? Last time you saw me, like 2 or 3 months ago, I couldn't even grow stubble this.
Oh, is that?
I couldn't even grow stubble long enough
Yeah.
to be that much different.
Well, it looks good.
I appreciate that.
I couldn't even come close to growing it.
It took me years.
Yeah.
Hey, Lon, how you doing?
Yeah.
All right, how are you?
Serves you right. And you doing well.
How's everyone?
Feel like
It was like, no.
we're reading that text.
There,
Cool part. Nice.
being funny.
On 7 consolidated.
Yeah.
Sure.
Serious. I gotta really Billy again.
Where's our fearless leader?
He'll probably walk in about 2 minutes. Always gonna time.
But if you ask me the difference, I mean, for
This is gonna be for our.
no, it's the boss, voice is the brand recap. That's probably being recorded.
That's what
You build a much required in driving. They're gonna park on surface. Because I have to get on bridge, like I have to do something. Yeah, we just. Looking gravel. Yeah, we've got this thing all qualifying, and it's. Like that.
So. What do you think stirring up on the machines then?
The second thing will do that. Stand around, so we did this back there.
Except for maybe the child. It's the only one I could think of.
Yeah.
So, stick some on someone's crop.
You're running some. You always have.
Oh, yeah.
Good, how you doing?
I did.
Here. Yes.
You got a video comment?
Not the comment. but it's-
The apocalypse.
But when you got this one.
Oh, I took last night.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Nice.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Remember?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be built 5 years ago.
Yeah,
You could see it in the northern sky.
yeah, we saw that one too. Like, Cisco tractor to work.
Been a
The
while.
moon was half full. Because there was so much bigger.
Ride around, they start.
Oh, yeah?
Really did it nuts.
Those things we want to.
Yeah, I guess.
Cause it's slow, this.
Gotta go back.
Take a 1 month drive.
Not back. Girlfriend knows me, but-
They said that people in Europe don't understand how big the United States is. How much there is to see.
Got some good pictures.
It it was worth it.
You know George.
Down there and down.
In his family.
Yeah, my wife really wants, I was there for a business trip for a couple days, but
Where at?
Louisiana.
It was kind of cloudy.
Oh, yeah.
Never had.
He was in an area that was nice.
There was some people that got total overcast.
What brought her out?
We got ready to start, Noah.
Kind of, you just have a seminar out there?
Okay.
I was training for the state DOT.
Oh, my phone's.
Man, died down really fast. It had been.
Okay, I think it's 6 o'clock now, at least according to my phone it is. So we'll go ahead and get started with Plan Commission meeting tonight. Call the meeting to order. We have our invocation or thought by Commissioner Hunter and the pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Shea.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be here this night. We ask that we will be guided in making correct decisions for the citizens of our community. We're grateful for this place that we're able to live and our neighbors we're able to associate with. We ask thee to be with us this night in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I'll invite you to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is to adopt the meeting agenda. It's been posted in accordance with state law, so we can take a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our meeting minutes from our last meeting. If we have any corrections or updates need to be made, we can make it, or we can take a motion to adopt them.
Move to adopt the minutes.
Motion to adopt the minutes. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items for the Planning Commission that are not on tonight's agenda for a public hearing. We have 4 public hearings tonight. So if you're here to comment on one of those public hearings, if you'll hold your comments for that particular time for that public hearing. Otherwise, if there's a comment you'd like to make, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and please limit your comment to 3 minutes. Okay, go ahead and close public comment. Next item is public hearing for a site plan for a Mr. Car Wash. I guess, Noah, you're soloing it tonight.
Yeah, you're stuck with me tonight. Yeah, hopefully you've had a chance to review the packet that's been posted on the website. We have advertised this as a public hearing. Like all site plans, this is an administrative approval. This does not go to City Council. Staff has reviewed the plans and there are no more unresolved comments. I'm not sure if the applicant's here. I haven't worked. Okay, looks like we have the applicant here. If you do have more in-depth questions about the site, otherwise all of the plans and everything have been in the packet. You know, just for the, I guess the audience information, this is located at the corner of 3000 West and Antelope Drive. Right there off of the freeway exit.
That's the golf course there behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And of course, applicants here.
Okay, tonight it's scheduled for a public hearing. So if members of the public that want to make a comment on this particular application, please come to the podium and state as your name, address, and 3 minutes or less for your comment. Okay, go ahead and close public hearing then. Back to the commission for discussion, motion. Well, the applicant didn't want to say anything. We can invite him up if you'd like.
You have any comments for us?
Nope, but happy to address any questions if you have.
Okay, would we like to have him come up and address any questions?
It looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
And I remember, if I remember right, this was originally part of the plan when we rezoned this, right? That there was going to be a car wash right there.
Yeah, when they did the rezoning process, the applicant gave us kind of a draft site plan with showing a gas station on the corner, the medical building that's now under construction. And, that might change when things actually come to fruition. But so far, they've been pretty accurate.
No, there's someone waiting.
Oh, okay, come on up.
There's someone online waiting.
Oh, Brian, better let him in.
Sorry, I won't take up too much time. My name is Elliot Smith. The name on there is Joe Pinezza. That's Joe right there. We work together for Terraform Companies. Address 6770 South 900 East. I don't really have anything to add to what's already included in the packet. And we appreciate your time tonight and appreciate you looking at this. And I'm going to ask you all a question that you may or may not be able to answer for me, just more for curiosity's sake. How's Costco coming along?
I've had plenty of people
We
ask.
know
me
what
the
we
same
know.
question. Direct the question over to Noah.
Noah.
Yeah, we're all excited about a Costco, right? And we get a lot of those questions, when is it? So we've done a rezone and an annexation.
Okay.
And so you're looking at the southwest intersection of that same cross street.
Mhm.
We are waiting for a site plan application would be the next step. And so these things take time. As far as I understand, everything's still looking good and
Okay.
they're working through the site development process. And so we hope to get an application soon. But like I said, these things just take time and they're never done until they're all the way done. And I'm
Right.
sure you understand that.
Right, I do. No, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And we look forward to being in the city. Thank you again for your
How
time.
soon are you planning on starting?
As soon as the building department will review and approve our plans, but this is a necessary step in the process before we can submit to building, as you know. So our plans will be ready to submit, I think, Thursday or Friday of this week. And if we can pull a permit within the next 6 weeks to 2 months, we'll be under construction and hopefully have the building completed by the end of the year.
That would be great.
Can I ask you, what's your anticipated flow through the car wash and what's your queue? How many cars do you expect? Because
Noah, could you
You-
scroll to the site plan?
your site plan does not show much. You have about 2 cars and then you're going to be out. And I don't think that shows actually Antelope Drive in the site plan.
Yeah, it doesn't. So to the south of us is this proposed C-store gas station. So that's a shared access road. So the cars enter off of 3000 West, turn right. Is that really Antelope Drive right there?
Yeah, that's where I was like, I don't think it.
Okay,
No,
that's
that's
mislabeled.
3000 West.
Yeah,
That is not Antelope Drive.
it's not. That's that's
That
a
is
fair-
lot 5.
Yeah, we're working with UDOT to actually relocate Antelope Drive. We want as much traffic as we can in front of our site.
That'll just be like a shared interior drive aisle for the subdivision.
Right.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, thank you. Does that address your question, Commissioner Shea?
And seeing it here, because I can see that you're actually coming in from the further west.
Correct.
I thought you were coming in from the east because I saw the one arrow and I said, you don't have enough queue storage to come in from the east, but when you have 4 drive lanes coming in, you should be able to get about 8
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah, so I think
There.
right there, we have enough stacking for 3 cars behind the point of sale canopy, plus 1 under each of the canopies with 4 wide, and then you've got some queuing. I think, if I remember right, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we can stack about 25 cars before the tunnel entrance, and then there's capacity for 5 cars in the tunnel. So there's a decent amount of capacity there.
Do we need to make that road correction part of our motion, or is that just, let us fix that?
Yeah, I don't see it being changed to Antelope Drive, so if you want
I'll
to.
go on record and say that we will fix that
Yeah.
before we get a stamped construction set.
Drive.
Maybe Antelope Station Drive. Or
Yeah,
something.
It's a
UDOT
frontage
doesn't
road.
know it yet, but we're
And-
changing their road.
Mr. Antelope Drive.
Any other questions?
The only question I have is the setback from the neighbor to the north. That seems real close. Is there some? I can't remember from when we reviewed this before, who was gonna be there.
That's the medical building.
Yeah, the medical-
I believe there's a childcare facility going in immediately to the north, if I'm remembering
I thought
right.
Medical, I thought there was a lot too, is not the medical clinic, but the lot. The medical building was the lot.
I don't believe the entire plat is in here, but if you can imagine, starting from the corner, you have gas station, car wash, these 2 smaller lots, shared drive aisle, medical office building.
Okay.
So this is not next to the medical office building.
So there's-
For purposes of setbacks and things, we'd consider this eastern facade to be the front because it has frontage on 3000 West. Even though for purposes of architecture, the door to their office is kind of facing south. But for purposes of setback, what we've measured is from the back of the sidewalk over here, there's a required front yard landscaping area that they provided, and there'll be street trees
Setback. From the main.
setback from the main road. The interior drives, they've still provided some landscaping here as well, so that it's not, too crowded. And then the side setback would be, this north side and the south side, and then this would be the rear setback. But the general commercial zone that it's in says the side setback says as required in site plan review. So it doesn't necessarily say what the minimum or maximum side setback is. And so if we were worried about that, I guess that could be something that we talk about. But
Also, most likely lot 2 and 3 will be facing the other direction anyway, right?
the access is off of that other shared drive. So there's kind of 2 east-west shared drives in the little commercial subdivision.
I just
And
wanted to make-
maybe they thought that they were just gonna, because it is called Antelope Station. Maybe they didn't realize that there's an actual Antelope Drive, but so yeah, they might name those little shared. Well, it does say public right of way. I'm gonna say they probably just messed it up. But anyway, the northern drive is where lot 2 and 3 access will be from.
I just couldn't remember in the general commercial if there was the setback on the north was what I was.
I said one question, no, probably more for you. They met with their new site plan, all the comments from staff. Does that include from the fire department?
Fire engineering and planning. We've got the fire marshal here in person. We've got the engineer online, Brian Bloman, if you guys have any questions for them. But I know that there was a little bit there's a round or 2 of revisions, and they've been good about addressing the comments that we've had. I think they added a few things to the architecture and moved some drive aisles around. So
I'll just ask our fire marshal real quick. They good with the plan they've got here? Okay, thank you. Thumbs up, so we're good.
All right. Great.
Okay, further questions, or we can take a motion?
Just as a last, are we requiring bike parking on this?
That is a good question. I don't believe I have not reviewed this in depth. Royce was reviewing this. Maybe the applicant can answer whether or not we've accommodated bike parking. We did recently enact that. The question is, did we receive their application prior to making that into law? Because I don't know if they're aware, but we now require bike racks for all buildings. Even though this is an auto-oriented type thing, we believe that there might be some, I don't know, teenagers or whatever that might work there that would want to park their bike rack. But yeah, I don't mean to put you guys on the spot, but And I don't know if that, maybe that could be, if you guys were worried about it, you could put that as part of your condition of approval or something that we'd review that.
Is it just one bike rack? Just a place to lock bikes up?
Yeah,
I mean, how,
there's, if I remember right, it's based off of the square footage of the building. So something this small is probably like a cement pad with a little bar that loops around that you can lock a.
I think we can accommodate that. Yeah, if
Okay.
you'd like us.
Appreciate you
add
guys.
that.
Okay, Commissioner King. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I assume that we want to add that review statement into the motion. Commissioner Shea?
Sure. Yeah,
All right.
appreciate that.
Okay, no problem. All right, Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of the site plan submitted by Joe Pianeza. Apologies if I mispronounced that, for Mr. Karloff.
Nailed it. That was good.
Be located at approximately 1632 South, 3000 West, which comprises approximately 1.3 acres in the general commercial zone, pending review of bike parking necessity for the building.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Next item on our agenda is a public hearing for a zoning amendment, a request for a rezone of property. I guess, Noah, you got this one?
Don't look at the screen here for a second. We got a little bit of scrolling we've got to do.
On the plus side, you're already almost halfway there.
Holy cow. Well, you can't say Royce wasn't thorough.
It's on page 73 is what I've got on mine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Roger Larkin has applied to basically he's got a corner lot and he just wants to split it in two. He came in with actually a subdivision application, but in the R1 zone, there's this pesky thing where you have minimum lot size, but then this maximum units per acre. So some cities just have the minimum lot size. It's a little more straightforward, but we kind of regulate the density with two ways. So he's able to accommodate a lot that meets the minimum lot size of in the R1 zone. I think what he came in, it was like 13,000 square foot lot, big, nice one. But the problem was the R1 zone says that you can't exceed 2.3 units per acre. And so it just put him over just a little bit that would require a zone change. So the options would be to go to R2 or R3. I included a table in here showing the different zoning requirements for lot dimensions. And you can see here the maximum lots allowed on 0.683. So 1.57, you can't get to. R2, you barely reach it. And then R3, you still can't. In either circumstance, they couldn't get to 3. But the R3, which was proposed, I believe, was desired just because it would, if he wanted to, he could leave more of his backyard, and the lot would still be an 8,000 square foot lot. The general plan is low density residential. You can see a map here, this yellow color, and that would support either any one of those 3 zones. You can see the map here. You know, he's got the corner, and they've actually across the street, they've recently rezoned it to R3. Across the street to the north, they've recently rezoned it to R3, but they're in the process of, they'll be in for a rezone to the PRD, I believe, because I think they're going to do, well, I don't want to get sidetracked here because that's not the application, but that's, you'll see that soon enough. But you can see across the street, it was a corner house and they cut it into, and they're just trying to do the same thing. And it's adjacent to this residential plan community called Shoreline. all of their lots in there are, some of those lots are 3,500 square feet. And these northern lots, I think that they were 1/4 acre or more lots. So that would meet the context just fine. I don't think anybody would notice whether or not it's a R3 or R2 lot necessarily. But yeah, that's what's before us. This does go to city council since it's a zoning item. So you'd be making a recommendation to city council whether or not you recommend this. And of course, we've noticed it as a public hearing. Sent out postcards, put a sign on the property. So yeah, let me know if you have any more questions.
Sounds good. Any questions for Noah?
Negative.
Okay, let's go ahead and open public hearing, as you mentioned. For this public hearing for this particular item, the zoning amendment has been discussed. If you have a comment, please come to the podium, make your comment. Okay, go ahead and close public hearing. Back to the commission. Thoughts, comments, or motion?
Seems to match everything kind of in that area. In fact, if anything, compared to what's just south of it, it's a little bit lesser dense. So it's not like it's going to impact that at all.
Yeah, it seems to match to me across the street and behind and, across the street both ways.
Yeah.
It seems like it fits just fine. I don't have an issue with this one.
I have no issue.
Well, I was saying the same thing. Adjacent properties are matching. That's what's fine.
Yeah, if it was next to, surrounded by R1 or something like that, I might say something different, but it's not. I think it fit just fine. Okay, we can take a motion.
I did the last.
Mr. Chair, I can make a motion.
If you would, please.
I move that we recommend city council approve the request by Roger Larkin for a rezone of property located at approximately 2419 West, 2700 South from R1 to R3.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for another zoning amendment. This one by Leisure Villas to rezone parcels along Antelope Drive from R2A1 to general commercial. Noah?
Yes, you're stuck with me again. So like you said, we received an application to change this. I need to apologize. I messed up the map. There is somebody who's probably feeling pretty stressed out right now because it's their backyard.
I was actually going to ask about that.
Yeah. My apologies. Yeah. There's just like this little notch and it just kind of, we got going too fast making that map. And
That little notch.
yeah, that little notch is somebody's backyard. It's not part of the rezone application. We're not considering that. I didn't believe that it was a big enough error to feel like we had to reschedule the public hearing or anything like that. But so yeah, if you can just imagine.
I wonder if that knows it's not part of the rezone.
Yeah. Yeah, I did get a phone call from a council member just asking about it last Friday. So full disclosure, that was 100% my fault. My apologies. So there's about 4.2 acres here. It has frontage on Antelope. It's a really busy area. This is the area where they've expanded the road and torn down these houses. You can see it's still multiple parcels. UDOT auctioned it off and they purchased this. I think that they wanted to go for a mixed use development rezone, but then we amended the ordinance to make a minimum project size of 5 acres, and they have like 4.2 acres. So it kind of made it so they couldn't go for what they're after. Now they're after a general commercial, which is consistent with our general plan. Except for this little notch that comes out right here. But the way the general plan reads is that it's a broad brush. So it's not a big deal if you have a parcel that's split general plan, for the most part, we'd take whatever the majority of the parcel is and apply that general plan to that because it's all one parcel right there. As far as requirements for providing information about what the applicant foresees that will go here. there's not a requirement that they give that. They're just proposing that it's the general commercial. So I've included the zoning language so they could come in with any, if we were to rezone it, they could come in with anything on the list of permitted items in the general commercial zone. So that's something to consider if we're worried about any of the permitted uses in the general commercial zone. We may want to think about rezoning this, whether or not if we want to have a say in that beforehand.
And this is kind of across street from Walmart, right?
Right across the street from Walmart. Yep. I know that the planning commissions recently considered all the properties along Antelope, the south side at one time, and we decided to just wait to see what happens on a application basis. So here we have the applicant in the audience here. Maybe he has more information about what kind of commercial users, but he hasn't provided any, and it's not required. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Here's the map of how it fits into the overall. You can see the commercials mostly oriented right along Antelope, and then everything south of there is a single family neighborhood. So anytime you do anything with single family in the backyards, you're going to get a lot of interest from those neighbors because it does have impact to them. Yeah, let me know if you have any more questions.
Okay, thank you. And well, this is a public hearing, scheduled for public, can we go ahead and open the public hearing for this item tonight? Again, same rules I laid out for the public hearings. Okay, go ahead and close public hearing, then back to the commission. Discussion.
I am disinclined to acquiesce to something along this line without having some idea of what's going in the commercial zone.
We could invite.
I would hate to have it open up and again, I know we already talked about a car wash or something, but that would be not a good location for that, especially being right behind residential or anything. So just having a blanket, once that goes commercial, once that rezone is done, they can put whatever they want. So this is where we have the gatekeeping authority to basically say yay or nay, and without having some kind of a plan, I'm disinclined to say yes to that.
Would we like to invite the applicant up to address that question? Thank you.
So this property does, this property does fall into the town center overlay zone. So we are limited to what we can actually put in there. And I believe car washes are not allowed in the town center overlay zone. So there are a few things that are, that we're not able to do in there. At this time, we don't know what we're going to be building in there. We had a great mixed use plan. And then when the city changed their code last month, it kind of threw that out the window. So we figured we'll just go in and rezone it for what the city wants to be, which is master plan for general commercial. So that's kind of why we're changing it to that. But it does have the town center overlay, which does make it so it is more specific on what can be there and what can't be there. It's got different facades that it has to meet, different buildings, uses, and things like that. So it's not a free for all to have anything. It is specified in that town center overlay what it can have.
And Noah's brought up on the screen there, just for the, that's what is permitted in the town.
Yeah, he's right. As far as the things that we prohibit within the town center, you can see here: auto repair, auto body, auto maintenance, auto detailing, car washes, and car dealerships.
Can you elaborate on the orientation of drive-through service uses? What is?
As far as, so when you're trying to create a mixed use walkable core, if you have a lot of drive-through uses, those are kind of conflicting uses where, especially where you have stacking and pedestrian crossing locations. And if you can imagine McDonald's drive-through or Jack in the Box drive-through, how sometimes those are not only unsightly, but they're also they just back up, and then people are zooming away with their kind of a high traffic use. Notice
So this
that
is limiting that then.
What?
It is limiting that then.
It doesn't say you can't have a drive-through. It just it's one of those fluffy ordinances where it's like, yeah, we're going to consider that.
It's also kind of it says orientation of it. So if you think about like the Carl's Jr. around Walmart, how its drive-through is contained within its property. It doesn't back it on Antelope Drive or anything like that. So it's kind of I think that's what the point of that one is.
Yeah, that's how I read that too.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to not create islands, have different zoning. And this stays consistent along that whole path of general commercial. To keep it all kind of the same in that same area.
I mean, I do agree. I mean, we have discussed this and this is a gatekeeping opportunity and that I would prefer to not change the zoning without having some inclination of what's going on.
I think the majority of everyone's opinion is we definitely like general commercial in our city. We want it. We don't want it hanging with a question mark necessarily over it.
And, I will add that I have seen where somebody comes in with the request to go general commercial and they say, oh yeah, we've got so-and-so, and then things don't pan out. And so if the city's really intent on that, as far as conditional approvals and things like that, that both parties agree to, we'd have to be more intentional.
I
to
guess
protect ourselves.
That's kind of where I'm at.
The hard part is the requirement for the zone change doesn't require a site plan. So
yeah, I mean, my issue is what Noah kind of said. I mean, he can come with an idea and say this is what we're going to do, but then funding doesn't come through or whatever reason, and it's still zoned. I mean, you're still going to get what you're going to get, and I personally think this should be. I mean, it's part of the plan to be general commercial. Let's get it there. Let's encourage the general commercial. I mean, we have the town overlay that kind of protects us from from these listens.
Do we allow storage units in general commercial?
No. If you look at the dimensions of the property, it is a really deep property. And if you look at across the street to see what's happened, they've essentially reserved a commercial pad that hasn't been developed yet, and then developed townhomes at the rear. And this is a pretty similar context to that, where the further away you get away from that, some of this property is pretty deep, and so the commercial viability does become a little bit less. But the storage unit would only be allowed in the neighborhood services or the industrial zone.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
Yep.
Guess you can sit down.
Thanks.
Okay, we can do a motion or more discussion. And this would be a recommendation to city council, whatever the motion is.
I haven't heard from anybody else.
We've heard from 3 people.
Thank you. I mean, unless
I personally like it. So
I like the fact that it's going to be commercial. I also like the idea, like knowing what's going in there. But I have seen times, I agree, where someone tells us this is going in here, and so we approve it, and then it does never happen.
and that's okay.
So
Just if we have a general idea of some kind of direction that it's going. I mean, yes, there's a protection of the town center, and that does sway me slightly on that, but I don't know that it does enough without having at least some idea, something that's going in.
Because there are limitations to this plot in that the only access you have is onto Antelope Drive. And according to UDOT's access management plan, they should only have one driveway.
and it'll probably line up with the one across the street there, kind of in the middle.
So if given that they have only one driveway, do they have a full? That's going to limit what can go in there too. And so if they're just going to be squeezing something into there, but they're trying to offload it, as you mentioned, that there was a plan to have a mixed use at that location. What is it going to be now? Most businesses, if we're going to have 2 or 3 in there, are going to want their own driveways, and so it's going to be a mix. And I just don't. And I agree. I think it's going to go commercial. The town center does, sway me at least to say, yeah, it's going to have some limitation, but I think there's a lot of unknowns in that, and that you're fitting it into a unique shape. There are other limitations, and with it being up against residential on the south side, there's a lot of concern there.
Same here. I agree with you.
Approximately 200 feet deep, so you're showing there, Noah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to be distracting. I was just looking at some stuff.
Oh, you're distracted.
Sorry. I believe that UDOT has left 2 driveway cuts in there where those existing driveways were.
Right, but when you change
know if they'll
zoning
allow
and you change land use, then you have to go through a UDOT access management plan again, in which they would reassess that. And so although there are 2 there now, because I have followed up with UDOT, they should only allow 1. So if they do allow 2, it's going against what UDOT says should be on that roadway.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any agreements when it was auctioned off or anything that the applicant's aware of, but
How
I
far
would
to
believe you.
How far to the west? Does it go all the way to the road there on the west?
350.
No, there's this little sliver that blocks.
Okay.
It'd be really convenient to have a driveway off of here if it's not too close to the road. But I believe it's blocked.
Okay.
Doesn't mean somebody couldn't try to purchase that, but of course, you'd have to be a willing seller. Oh, I wasn't aware that that was still owned by UDOT.
Okay. Well, we have a motion.
I don't know. I get that there's nervousness about that, but I honestly don't see a lot of downside. To recommending approval.
Then make a motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, please.
I move that we recommend that city council approve the zoning amendment by Leisure Villas to rezone parcels located at approximately 2255 West Antelope Drive from R2A1 to general commercial.
We have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
So 2 nays, is that what I hear? Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for an ordinance amendment request by Cami Lanning for an amendment to our daycare ordinance. Snow, if you want to take this one.
Sorry, on this last one, what was the count?
5-2.
5-2.
Do you want to do a roll call?
You need names. Commissioner Shea and Commissioner King voted in opposition.
Okay, I think we got it. Thank you.
Maybe as a last question, I know there's voters, but maybe the implications if it does go general commercial, will there still be the requirement to meet fencing along between commercial and residential? So they would still need to provide that 6-foot concrete.
Yeah, if you read
fence.
the buffer ordinance, it depends on what the use is, but I think it says we have to review the ordinance, but I think there's a light commercial, a normal commercial, and then a high density residential, low density residential. So it depends on what use is next to each other that dictates how much buffering and what kind of fence and things like that. But I think in most circumstances you could rely on at least some sort of landscape buffer and most likely a concrete fence.
We had that issue come up on that property on 2000
2000.
at 193. That was a big issue on that wall. So yes,
Mhm.
it'll come up.
Okay, this next one is also a public hearing. The city's received an application from Cami Lammy's Daycare, which Cami Lanning's clever name. There is a provision in state law that recently passed that allows, for lack of a better way of explaining it, bonus kids, right? So if you have, if they meet the age requirements, so if you can imagine little tiny kids with diapers and stuff, that takes more work, right? And they have a limit on the number of maximum number of kids per one employee. And so currently, it's 8 kids that one employee can watch. But with this new state law, you can have the bonus kids as long as the kids are within a certain age. You know, they have to evaluate the daycare's roster of what their ages are and stuff to make sure it's kosher. And so fast forward to our city ordinance, so cities are allowed to actually have more stringent ordinances than the state. And so our ordinance is more hardline. It doesn't talk about the bonus kids. It just says if you're going to have more than 8 kids, automatically you have to have 2 employees, at least 2 employees. And so they've applied to amend the ordinance. There's some proposed language that would essentially bring us into congruency with the state law. You can see here the proposed language here with the ability to add 2 additional school-age children 5 to 12 years old pursuant to Utah code with 1 employee present. And then the major home occupation B is a little bit more because it goes up to 16, and then that's where you have to have a second employee. So what we're talking about for her specific situation is the home occupation A, where they still have the one employee. All these other provisions are still applicable as far as hours of operation, no parking on the street, fenced in backyard, and making sure that they get the business license and get up to speed with the Utah Department of Health and Human Services for their certifications. So it's a pretty straightforward amendment. Things to consider, whether or not there's added risk for kids only having 1 employee, or if this can add more traffic. Most likely, some of these kids are probably going to be in the same family as people already going there. So maybe it doesn't necessarily add additional traffic. The applicant is in the audience, and if you do want to call on her, and if you have any more questions, let me know.
I do have a family here. They have 3 kids, and I do watch their 2 youngest. Their son recently has gone to kindergarten, and as you know, kindergarten is now full-time. So they don't need care for him currently. But come this summer, they have to decide, are they going to split their kids because I can't currently watch them? Or are we going to change the rule and I can have him for the summer? I know some daycares have where kids have to come at a certain time or they can't come at all and they have to be picked up at a certain time. I allow kids, I open at 6 a.m. They can come at 6. They can come at 2. I don't care unless they text me when it's quiet time. So I don't think the traffic would be too big of a problem because I don't require them. They do need to be picked up by 5:30. Normally, I only have 2 that come all the way till 5:30. I live in my name's Cami Lanning. My address is 781 South, 3900 West, Syracuse. I live in a cul-de-sac and I have a three-way parking in my driveway. And I park in the garage, so I have spots for people to park. So we would really appreciate it if you would pass this on, especially for my family that is here, the husband's here, the mom went out with the children. I don't know if any of you have young kids that have to go to daycare, but how hard it is to find daycare. I myself can't sit there and say, I will hold a spot all year long and lose money so I can watch your kid just in the summer or just at Christmas time. The ratio is 8. I can only have 2 kids under the age of 2. So I have that. And then the other kids are older, so they have to be 2 or older. The oldest one I currently have is 5. The youngest one I currently have is 18 months.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant once she's up here?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of quick questions. I reviewed this with the state, and looking at their new regulation and everything. Do you foresee this, not just with you, but any others, looking at the ratios with special needs kids? How do you deal with that? I was impressed that you said you could have full-time kindergarten, but there's days where, they're out, there's not school that day, or
Right.
they're out early and they can come and see you even if,
Right.
those situations.
I think if I ever had someone with special needs, I definitely need another person. My house, I like it small. My parents like a small group. I don't want to have 16. My kitchen would not hold 16 kids at one time. So I don't foresee ever going really big.
Does the state require changes if you do have special needs kids? Does that ratio decrease?
I do not know that.
Okay, because I couldn't find that, so.
Yeah, I can ask, but I do not know.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank
thank you. And this is scheduled for a public hearing tonight. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Rules are, as I stated, for all the previous public hearings. So if someone had a comment, please come to the podium and make your comment. Please hold it 3 minutes or less.
Good evening, Commission. I'll just make a quick comment. I sent all of you an email late last night, so I don't know if you had a chance to look at that or not, but I really appreciate you looking into this. I don't know if you've had to find daycare. I'm sure many of you have families, but it is so difficult, and more families are having to have both parents work to make ends meet. We're in that situation. Every time my son, who's now in kindergarten, has a teacher prep day or a fall break or a spring break or a Christmas break, and especially the summer break, I have to take work off. And it's a challenge, and a lot of parents face that. I just think that's becoming more and more of a challenge in recent years, just with inflation and people having to make ends meet and go back to work, and daycare costs have just gone through the roof. The last demand for daycare, like Cammie mentioned, most daycares, they only have these 8 slots, and they want to reserve them for kids that they can watch year round. They don't have, they run a business and they want to be financially viable. And so finding a spot for these school age kids or bonus kids, as Noah was referring to them, is just really difficult. And I think that was the whole motivation behind this House bill that passed a couple of years ago, to allow these daycares to go above the limit for just specifically school age kids for these scenarios. And I think it's just an incredible thing, an opportunity that we would really benefit from personally. And I'm sure there's a lot of other families that would benefit from that. And the way the city code is currently written, it basically prevents us from doing what the bill is designed to allow us to do. People like Cammie that are limited to 8 and they want to take on those additional school age kids, she can't do it with how the code is written, because the city would require her to get another employee, and that's a whole nother, comes with other issues. And then, so the result would be she just wouldn't do it. She would just stick to 8 And then she's not able to take advantage of this new bill and we're not able to do it. I just feel like this, the way the code was written before this new bill was in alignment with the Department of Health. I don't think the city ever intended to be out of alignment. I don't see the downside for the city to just be more in alignment and reduce confusion. Daycare providers go to the state, they get their license, they're told one thing. They come to the city and they're told a different thing. It's confusing. And I just think this would really be beneficial for families in Syracuse to be able to take advantage of it. And I really appreciate you considering it. Thank you.
Before you leave, can you state your name and address?
Sorry.
Didn't-
Levi Ball, 1146 South, 4000 West.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, go ahead and close public hearing then. Back to the commission.
I had just a quick question, just to clarify, because I wasn't sure. It sounded like you kind of alluded to this when you were first explaining this, Noah. It sounds like the state with the change in the legislature obviously expanded this and whatnot. Are we, if we said no, I'm not saying that we would or not on this, but if we said no and left it the way it is, are we opening ourselves up to any kind of legal issues with that being with the state code?
And now Royce's absence falls on me.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I've looked at that issue and I've discussed it with Mr. Ball at length one afternoon. He makes some very good points and so forth, but as I reviewed it, I believe we could keep it the way it is and not run afoul of the law.
I guess one thing we could think about also is if we want to always be in line with the state of Utah, we could just change the ordinance to match whatever the state law is, or we can leave it as it is. As I mentioned, we can keep it what it currently is. So I guess that's kind of our decision. We can, the way it's written up, to me, it's a little bit clunky, but we could probably reword it or update it. Maybe just to be, if we want to just be in line with what is allowed by the Department of Health and Human Services childcare licensing requirements. We can even just say that if that's what we want.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, I don't have a problem with the concept and idea behind making this change. I think it would be beneficial to a number of people. But yeah, I mean, if we can have it worded to basically be in line with the state and Department of Health and Child Care Services situation, then I wouldn't have a problem saying absolutely to that.
Yeah, the one thought I've got, as was mentioned by the Levi, I wondered if at what point would it be, they've taken 8, this allow them to take in 10 with these 2 other ones. Would it come to a point where, and I'm not saying this would happen, but the child care may just choose to, they are then full. And so we're back to the same issue of needing to have someone watch them only on certain instances, summers, vacations, or summer or holidays or things like that. And are we back to the same issue?
The idea of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
The 2, I call them, all the daycare people call them ghost children, bonus children. They have to be 5 or older, so it's, it's
Right.
you have that opening in the summer because the 5-year-olds going to school year round. And I have another parent who doesn't need care. I currently have her son. Her son won't even go to kindergarten until I guess the fall of 2025. She talked to me about 2 months ago and said, Cammy, in 2026, could I bring Dean back to you in the summer? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm trying to figure this out. So, I mean, this is a single mother, that has 1 child.
I invite you to come back up to the podium.
And she's looking to 2026 now of what can I do? Are you going to be available or am I going to be up a tree?
And if you want to come back to the podium, we can, that way the people on, I'm not sure if people are actually online, but that way they can hear you too. Thousands. Okay. And it's also recorded that way.
Okay, so you want me to say it again?
No, I think
Oh.
we're okay. I'll give you, for instance, you've got that one you talked about. You've got the one that your parents were just talking about here. That's your two, right?
Oh, yeah, but he's not till 2026. So
Right.
I'm asking for this summer, I'd like one. And then he'd be gone again.
Right. My thought was if you open it up and then you'd may say you have someone who works until 5:30 or they'll pick them at 5:30. They get off of school at 3, they're with you for 2.5 hours. That then counts as the time. But then you've now got that used up, but you may not have room in the future for a summer one or something like that. And so my concern is just kind of kicking the can down the road.
Okay, well, but licensing, the Utah licensing won't allow anymore.
Right.
So, even if you guys said, oh yeah, do what you want, licensing wouldn't allow that. I'm stuck
Right.
with
But then Levi, I can't remember your last name, I'm sorry. Ball.
ball.
He mentioned that it would be during the school year, during the summers or holidays, things like that. He would have his son with you all day, which I think is a great thing. But if you were then full because you'd have other people you contracted with, you don't have an opening for that.
Right, but I'd only have 8 normally. And then when school happens to be out, I can take those extra 2.
Okay. And I'm just trying to think how we word the ordinance so it gets what you were talking about, but it also, because that's
Helps
where
it.
you want to do it, but other people may see it differently. I'm just trying to think, how can we word the ordinance to get what everybody's trying to get? So.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it or anything.
No, yeah, no, I understand.
How can we word it? So, okay.
We just align ourselves with what the state.
Is that what section G is?
Section G, yeah.
That's the ability to add 2 additional school-age children pursuant to Utah code.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now it's 2. Is it going to be 4 down the road or is it
going to be
but the state will.
Or maybe the best way to address this, and this is up to the commission how we want to word this. May we just strike a lot of it and just say that to the child care, the amount and is provided by or is in line with, and I'm thinking of, there's talk on the top of my head here, but, is in line with the Utah Department of Health and Human Services child care licensing, and that's the numbers we go with.
Yeah. Pursuant to the state code.
Yeah, I'm just saying we can eliminate some of the wording in there if we want to do it that way.
I think that's a great idea. One of the comments I was going to make that I forgot, the fact that it says 2 additional, I think there are different categories depending on the type of license you get, or it could be 3 additional. And so I was going to suggest that, but I forgot. It might be good to just not even reference 2, just say pursuant to the Utah state code. But anyway, I think that's a great idea.
Well, thank you.
It's actually slightly trickier than that because some of the numbers are set in the state code by the legislature. These bonus kids or ghost kids are actually provided for in rule by the Department of Health. But if we said pursuant to state law, we'd be fine. You'd include both of those things. If we just go code, you're
okay. So they have to go
those ghost children off there on the side somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Pursuant to state law.
Well,
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this isn't with this specific thing. My question is with the strikeout on 9BI down below. Why are we striking out all daycare occupations shall be certified as residential child care provider?
I think our business license specialist, Heather Nelson, would be a great candidate to answer that question.
What a convenient.
Hi.
Glad you're
Okay,
here.
so one reason why I thought going with this instead of just going with the state code is because I work with so many daycare people that come in and they just don't understand the state code. And so if they have something like this, they've at least got a picture, an idea, something that explains it. A lot of times, we use interpreters and stuff like that to kind of explain it. So that's why I didn't want it to just say state code. Also, the state code, it's kind of a little bit tricky depending on which type of license you have. It's like there's a residential license and then the other one's a licensed family. That one you can have up to 16 kids. The other one you can have up to 8 with the 2 extra. So yes, we can totally work on the language. And I think the reason we took out some is because in this old code, I realized we didn't have the licensed family person in there as well. So we were adding another paragraph. So it would also apply to the licensed family person.
I think what Commissioner Hammer was talking about was in 9I there. Why is that struck?
Well, it looks like most of it got moved up into
Yeah, it looks
section
like
B.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. And if you look at under G, it already says it, so it just makes it consistent.
Yeah, I think it was redundant. So,
Okay, so
Um,
so you just moved it up to to basically item B, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, so this one would include that licensed family, but the reason is just working with that's probably one of the biggest home occupations we have. Having it just written out for them makes my job a lot easier and then gives them kind of a heads up. So I'm not on the phone constantly explaining, here you go again, or here you go. I can just be like, here it all is in a nice little package and it explains it all for you. But again, it's
So for us,
whatever.
For wording, if we just said, compliant with the Department of Health and Human Services childcare licensing, does that help you or do you?
No, because then they don't understand and then there's,
The Utah state law.
that one's iffy because we also had a new bill that just got passed in this last legislative session where they don't necessarily have to get their residential certificate. The reason being that the state did where they don't have to get the residential certificate, but then the funding that comes back to them changes, so they won't get like state reimbursement. So a lot of people that go to daycare get some help and aid from the state. But if you choose not to get licensed to watch 8 or less children, then you don't get the payment vouchers. Like you can't accept the payment vouchers from the state. So it gets very confusing, especially now with that law where you don't necessarily need your residential certificate.
House Bill 153.
Yeah. And I've got them printed out over there, but I'm just like, oh, like nonstop. I've been talking with the director and he's just like, I know it's kind of really confusing.
So this puts us in line, your wording that you submitted here.
That we can clean up.
New state law that was passed. So it
Ye-
gives the 8 plus the 2
Uh-huh.
and but if that changes, that just means we'll have to come back and change it down the road.
Yeah.
Makes it easier for you to explain it to.
Yeah.
citizens.
And I'm thinking they're not going to change this because this gives that the 2, and then it actually it doesn't, I looked through there, it doesn't refer to anything about children with disabilities. So I assume they handled that the exact same as just the 2 bonus children, because I didn't see anything in there about that. But yeah, this just kind of helps a lot of people, especially working with so many, just kind of understand it a little bit. It's very confusing even when you go to their website and they've got all these different scenarios and pictures and ages you can watch and pick. So
I like the language I was reading. I don't have any problem. I'm not an
Yeah.
expert in it.
I would actually just address one question to our attorney on this. Your clarification on the wording and everything as far as, for citizenry, making it make sense for them. I get that. And I thank you for clarifying that because that makes this a lot easier. My only question on that is for our attorney, are we good legally with kind of how it's written?
oh, you can change the wording. I don't mind the wording.
Yeah, I'm fine with this wording. It just means that you'll have to come back and revisit if the legislature changes the numbers again.
Or meaning reduces it, because if they increase it, it would still be the same. We would still be limiting 2. Like if they raised it to 4, seems like this wording would still keep it at 2, but then
If they raise it to 4, we have to come back and revisit this again.
You'll have to look at it if and when you want to, every time they change it up or down. Is that what
We
you're
would have to
asking?
do anyway.
Yeah.
If they lower it, we would be legally required to do so anyway,
And
right?
Just a second.
Probably, yes.
Okay.
In talking with the director, he didn't see much of a change. One thing is fire code and the ability to get all the children out of the home safely. So there are limits that the state
Right.
fire marshal puts on this. So I don't see them increasing that much for one caretaker, increasing it above 10. They may, but in terms of safety, that's kind of what he hit on, is he didn't really see that happening. So, and these are age, the 2 extra are the 5 through 12. So they have to be 5 years old, which kind of gives them the ability to get outside and rescue themselves, I think. That's why it's a little bit older.
The legislation, the recent legislation that we're talking about actually passed in 2022. And what it said was, Department of Health, you go out and decide what to do. It took the Department of Health over a year to do it. We're asking you to do it in one night because you're so much smarter than the Department of Health.
You are correct.
Hey, any other questions for?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Lane, you had another comment you wanted to make. I'll go ahead and recognize you for just, normally it's normally don't do this, but I'll go ahead and recognize you for your comment.
Say that, childcare licensing requires us to do whatever you guys, whoever's the strictest. So if for whatever reason, if they decided to say, okay, we're taking away the 2 bonus kids, they would automatically, even if you said we could keep them, I wouldn't be able to keep.
Right.
Because licensing says no.
Okay.
See, I feel
Thank
uncomfortable.
you.
If the state is relaxing licensing requirements, I feel a little uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I want to change the words from how we.
Yeah, I like it. I'm fine with it.
Sounds like do we have a motion then?
This is a recommendation
To
to,
recommendation to city council.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, please.
Mr. Chair, I recommend, or I propose that we recommend to city council to approve the update to the excuse me, to approve the amendment to the number of children allowed in a home daycare setting under one operator as proposed in the packet.
Okay, there's a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item on our agenda is to adjourn into work session. So someone can make a motion for that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in work session.
See, we are smart.
First item on our work session agenda is our city council report. Councilman Watson.
I think I just have one minor update for you. So the garage parking stall requirements, the update to the code that you voted on to recommend to city council to amend that so that there was a recommended parking stall size without obstruction in a garage, that did pass. So, yeah. So I think that's the only update I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
City attorney update. I know we'll hear from you later, but
I'll just defer till later. Thank you.
okay. The bylaws discussion, there was, I know that the point of this originally was, do we have to have a base? How many people have to be here? I didn't see anything in there. I did have one other question though, as just for clarification, if we can discuss this first, but my question will be really quick. Where it says down lower where it talks about voting, and it talks, this was something that I wanted to make sure that if we had to clarify something, because the mayor brought it up at one point, do we have, we're at a little bit further down.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. But yeah, we do need to have 4.
Now, does that have to be 4? I know 4 in attendance, or 4 have to vote in favor.
Well, you have to have the majority. So you have 7 people on planning commission, right? So you have to have, so say you only have 4 people in attendance and a quorum, it has to be unanimous vote to reach the majority.
And the way we've talked about, and this is when we talked about adjusting it, was to say that it would, a unanimous, or not yet, a vote in favor would be, or to pass a motion, it would be the majority of the members present. That was something we talked.
So you could do a 3.
Yeah.
A 3-2. Yeah, the city council discussed it and it kind of died, the city council. I guess there could be additional discussion if you guys really wanted to be able to pass things with three, but it seems like, in everything that we've read, it's pretty consistent that you should have a majority of the quorum
Well,
voting.
there have been some
towards it.
meetings we've only had 4 people here.
Yeah, and so if you can't vote unanimously, the
So-
item gets tabled or,
Well, no, actually,
That's still important, right?
yeah, it's quorum, but
Yes, something.
that's a majority of the quorum, but not a majority of the
and
commission.
that's my recommendation is we change it. And this is something we've talked about before, but
Yeah, we presented
My
that in council, but
recommendation
it
is-
died.
it would be the majority of the members present constitutes because otherwise,
Yeah,
we have to have 4 to hold a meeting. And so if we only have 4 and it has to be unanimous vote, what's the point of, we can have the meeting, but if someone decides to vote no, you can't get any business done.
That's right.
So why not so that we can at least do business and have it be the majority of the members present?
Well, if you guys want, we can push it back up to city council, but they already squished it. So I
I
don't know.
can see the counter argument to that. I get what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but there's a reason why there's 7 of us. And in the event that it would fail in a vote 4 to or 3-1 in that situation, it could just be that it gets tabled to a later time when at least more commissioners can be there. I know that makes it a little bit frustrating.
Well,
but
it also, you can table it. Well, assuming the tabling motion passes. But you still, in order to make the motion for a table, it would still have to be a unanimous vote to table. If you have one person who says, no, I don't want to table, I want a discussion to decide it tonight.
I can see your point there that
So-
you may have one day and a commissioner that's just being a butthead about it, or maybe is
Or they
has
may
legitimate
feel that
concern.
they may feel that they want to make a decision on that night and not have to push it off. Maybe it's something that's important to an applicant or whatever, or important to city or for whatever reason, and it's a 3-1 vote. But one of the people who voted in favor of it says, no, I want to work on this tonight. We need to work it out tonight. We've got to make a decision tonight because whatever reason, then you're just going to sit there and
And you're going to
stalemate it.
spin wheel. I can see going in circles for.
Yeah, you'll stalemate it, but you can't even table it without a unanimous vote.
Is there something that we could add that maybe we could pass this on to city council in the event where there is a stalemate on that kind of situation, that it automatically gets tabled until a full majority can be there?
Well, that would be, we'd have to make it and maybe make an adjustment to a motion to table that in certain instances, but we're stuck in the same situation.
No, with the thing you just highlighted up here behind us, it says, a vote of 4 members of the council shall be required. It doesn't say unanimous vote. It just-
That's where my question is
Yeah.
it says a vote of 4. Does that mean it can be a 3-1 vote, or does it have to be 4 unanimous? Because I could read that either way.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings about it.
Because I think by.
But as far as
Just a quorum.
interpreting it, yeah, I could see how you would read it that way.
Yeah, I can see it.
I can read it both ways. That's why I'm trying to clarify. So it's a vote of 4. I don't know, attorney, how do you read that?
I read it as requiring 4 votes in favor of the motion.
Okay.
I don't read it the way that you say it can be read, but
I can see it
but I
both
can
ways.
see I can see where reasonable minds could disagree on that.
Especially where we have no alternate commissioners anymore that could be called in if we are down a few commissioners for
Is there
whatever
a way
reason.
that we could implement what I was talking about, where in the event of a situation like that, where an item gets voted on, yay, No, it fails. No, nay, no, it fails. Sorry. I like that. And at that point, you know, if we're spinning our wheels and there's three options, yay, nay, or table, and all three fail. Is there something that we can implement that says this automatically will be tabled until?
No, because it falls under the, you have to have four to transact any business.
Yeah, it's from my experience, this has only happened a few times where you have
Yeah.
low attendance and a split vote. So you have those two qualifying things. And I would think that
I've seen it happen a few times with me on the commission.
yeah,
I remember
it happens. But I would think that I guess the common thread or underlying principle would be if you're dealing with a controversial item, it's probably best we have the full quorum here to make a full vote.
I totally agree. But my point is if you've got someone who wants to make a decision that night, which I have been on the commission with members who would want to do that, they may continually vote. If you vote to table it, they may say no. And so you're just stuck. You can't do any business. You can't move on because they don't want to table it. They want to make a decision that night. You've got someone who's dead set. They don't want to vote in favor.
Right.
And somebody who's dead set that they want to vote in favor.
Yeah.
Well, and in all honesty, I think the city's taken some heat before because we want to move things along. It's not like a conspiracy theory. We're trying to do anything shady, but you know, we've been accused of, oh, well, you guys are just trying to force this through when there's not enough people to look at it. So, you know, I think that the way it's worded, it could be interpreted both ways, but I think the intent there is to make sure that we have a full quorum.
What do you propose?
My proposal would be to say, except otherwise specified in these rules, a vote of 4 members of the commission shall require to transact any business. For the 4 members, I would say instead of 4 members, I say a majority of members present. It has to have 4 members present and a majority, and then change it down to where under voting, where it says that a majority of members present shall be required to pass a motion.
Yeah, that was what was presented to city council last time.
Yeah. And
When was the last time?
I can get you the exact date.
I mean,
About 2 months ago.
Yeah, it was Colin was first
I
started.
remember why they didn't like it.
They talked about there was an understanding that maybe it wasn't in line with what's allowed in LUDMA in the state planning documents for quorums and things. And so if we brought it back, we could clarify whether or not that actually is even allowed, because the state laws talk about having the majority of the appointed or elected body, not the majority of those present.
What if, as a negotiated middle ground, you required at least 4 votes in favor of any motion except motion to adjourn, which doesn't require it anyway, and a motion to table, and on a motion to table, you just had a majority of the number of members present. That
I
way
agree with that.
I'm good with that.
you could move it forward.
If we can put that in there somehow, so we're not just stuck in a loop.
So in case we're not responsible adults, we have seen.
Oh, believe me, I've served on some commissions. You've seen that, or I've seen that happen.
I've seen it
Luckily,
happen a few times in
yeah.
2020. So
I like it.
You'll still have an issue if you only have 4 present and the vote is 2 to table.
Well, then
Still won't know what.
well, in a
two vote.
Well, then you can try and negotiate maybe.
Okay, so the majority of those present for tabling, but for passing or denying, you'd still be looking at the majority of the appointed or elected.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Because I think that'll help it so that we hit the mark that you're talking about, Ken.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we don't open ourselves up to problems with state law, as well as problems where all of a sudden, you know, you have people coming in saying, well, you only pass this with 3 people and there's 7 of you on the commission.
Yeah, if we can word that in there somehow, I just wanted to have, I'll call it the escape clause. I just want to have a way that we can.
I'm going to call it a bonus clause or a ghost clause.
Okay.
Or an escape clause.
Whatever works best.
You want to,
The other one was the base location, which I think is up in. Where are we at? It's in the area where it talks about holding meetings. I'm not finding it real quick.
by the way, one of the pieces of legislation I'm going to talk to you about briefly tonight is major changes to the open meetings law. And I think it will address what your concern is. So we might want to look at that provision
Okay.
anyway.
That would be great. You know where I'm looking for? No, I'm trying to find where it's at. That
Try them together, base location.
I think the new law, and you'll address that, but you just have to have a base location and quorum.
Right. I think maybe you're looking under Article 4, number G. Is that right? The remote location.
yeah. Oh, it's under meetings there. 4. Yeah. Yeah, and the quorum. At one point there's a discussion, we have to, in order to have the quorum, we had to have enough people here. We could decide we'll have one person here and everybody else was remote. You know, we had to have enough people here in person, and we could have maybe a couple that were remote, but the majority had to be here in person unless there were certain other mitigating events that required it to go all remote or something like that.
And I believe under the new open meetings law, although I'll take another look at it, but I think under the new open meetings law, all 7 of you can be somewhere and none of you need to be
You
here.
don't even have to have a commissioner.
Okay.
Just have some.
Okay. Well, if that's what it is, maybe we can reword it based on how the new LEDMA is, or new Open Meetings Act. Sorry, wrong legislation. Okay, those are the things I want to talk about. Anything else? Had other things we want to talk about with the bylaws?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to the next, which is the ordinance amendment for street trees. And just as we're pulling up, Noah, has the city forester looked at this already? Because I would love to have a recommendation from him or her before we do too much with this ordinance.
Well, lucky for you, you were talking with the city forester.
All right. You have a new hat then.
Yeah, I think larger cities, it's a whole career path, and full disclosure, I have a degree in landscape architecture and I like trees, and see what you get when you try to tell people that we need to plant more trees around here. They make you the forester. So I can,
Gets the grease, right?
yeah.
If you're bringing this up, I thought the graph that tells you which trees can be in a parking strip, everything was very well.
Yeah, this was like that when I got here, so I can't take any credit for that. I think so. Councilmember Savage brought this forward, and his concern was on the spacing more than anything. Basically, just so you guys probably read it, but you have small, medium, large park strip. And the gist is, don't plant a giant tree in an itty bitty space, because then it's going to destroy the curb and everything else. And so the bigger the park strip, the bigger the tree. And then the bigger the tree, the further away you space them, smaller tree close together. So I think Jordan's point was that we have trees that are closer than 30 feet for small trees, and sometimes closer than 40 feet for medium trees. I actually personally think that there's some wisdom to making sure that these large trees aren't too close together. So I don't know if we should, I wouldn't necessarily recommend changing the structure of this. If we wanted to adjust the number down to like 20, reduce to 10 feet. I think in the neighborhood that he drives by every day, he drives by and sees street trees that are closer together than this, and it irks him for whatever reason. I don't know if somebody complained or if it's just his bone to pick. But so that was his thing. If we wanted to look at the list of trees, we could do that.
The distance might also depend on I can't tell you what every one of these single trees is going to look like when it's more full grown, but I know some are some are columnar, some spread out more. So it might be dependent on the type of tree how close you have them together.
Yeah. And we did just adjust the required height that has to be trimmed above the driving surface, 13.5. So either way, these things are going to get trimmed up to 13.5, whether or not it, whatever form the tree's in. So that would be my recommendation to kind of direct our discussion. If you want to change one of these numbers, you guys can come up with a new number, or if you wanted to add or take away any of these trees. But to blow it up, that's up to you guys, but I wouldn't recommend just blowing it up. I'd recommend
As the city forester, what is your recommendation?
Well, I think it's fine the way it is,
Okay.
if you ask me, but I don't really have that strong of opinion. We don't have, I mean, just for your information, we don't have a tree planting permit. Some larger cities, I mean, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
They have a team of guys with matching polos and they run around spraying stuff and and we're just not that size of a city, but there are benefits to having an urban forest. I mean, it's undeniable that it's a good use of taxpayer dollars because of the benefits that it provides to the residents. And that's why most cities encourage the trees. I know Salt Lake, they'll give you a tree. And some cities
For example, taking out park strips, you may take the park strip out, but you can put some trees in your park strip and that still maintains some greenery there, or whatever color your tree is, I guess. But
yeah. And there is a balance. And that's why these regulations are in place. Like we're not necessarily checking every street tree that gets planted, but if there's ever a problem, then we look at this up. And if there's a violation to this, then that's when we can have some ammunition for enforcement to make sure that they're compliant with the regulations.
One of my favorite things to do when we drive down any strip of road is to have trees on both sides. It's traffic calming. That's one of the big things. B, it looks really, really good. Like you said, having urban forest.
It's also cooling.
It's very cool. So I personally, I don't necessarily have a problem with where the large tree, 50 feet on the large trees, because some of those large trees, they can get really big. But I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with reducing medium and small trees down by 10 feet.
I feel the same. And it's dependent upon to me, it's kind of dependent on the tree. The smaller ones, depending on how big a spread they're going to have. I mean, they may only have a 10-foot diameter of a tree. The branches may only go out 10 feet.
And I promise you, you have an individual who plants trees too close together. They're not going to like how they come out anyway.
No,
so
I'll take them out. So
sorry.
No, I was gonna say I'm leaning towards, I agree with Commissioner King of 20, 30, and 50 or something like that. Anyway, go ahead.
When I moved in, I consulted this list and I only have a 4-foot park strip and I found the biggest tree and that's the Bradford pear. I looked them all up and said, what is the biggest tree that I can put in my park strip? Because I too like street line trees.
Yep.
And the Bradford pear is at the largest, they say, is 30 feet wide if you just let it go. And so at 30 feet, even if, that would barely be touching each other on the ends. So I think minimizing that is an option. And as a traffic safety engineer, again, it is traffic calming, and it's also much safer. Is that if we can provide more trees, any pedestrian walking on the sidewalk is going to be protected by a tree if an errant vehicle goes off of the roadway. And that is a huge benefit for safety wise when we provide trees, and the more we can put them on the side of our roadways, the safer our sidewalks are going to be.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen the images next to like cars that have gone off the Autobahn? The trees or the cars just like wrapped around the tree, and the tree is just like not even hasn't even moved. So if you're a pedestrian, you can duck behind a trunk like that and have a little bit of safety.
I mean, one of my favorite things, and I kind of mentioned this, but I don't know if any of you have ever done it, but gone up into old school Ogden neighborhood. You can't remember, I think it's Taylor is the road. You ever have a chance to drive up there, you've got 100-year-old trees up in that area that you drive down that road and it's cool. It feels safer. And it looks amazing. It's if that's what we always, there's that old phrasing of you don't plant a tree so that you'll sit in the shade of it. You plant the tree so that generations down the road will sit in the shade of it. And if that's what we want our city to look like 50, 60 years from now, that's what we need to be thinking about with this kind of change.
Best to plant a tree is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Second best time.
Yep.
But I just, I mean, I very much agree with the 20-foot limit. And coming from Ogden City, I was on the city council once when a developer came in to build some townhomes. And he accidentally tore out all the trees that were in the park street that were old, 50 to 100-year-old trees. And I promise you, there was quite a public outcry of, the damage that was done that can't be replaced by taking out trees. So the more we can help promote trees for the urban forestry, I think is a very beneficial.
So is our recommendation going to be like to rewrite it to say small trees 20 feet, medium trees 30 feet, and keep 50 feet for large trees? Do we want to adjust that one also?
I think 20, 30, 50 is.
Okay. Is the rest of the commission okay with that?
I would like to say something where we would require more trees.
I like that.
As that new development, if they're only planting small trees, we're only requiring them every 50 feet. I would want to see even more.
Yeah.
The trees are inexpensive when we're putting in a big development.
Are we making a recommendation, or are we talking about whether it's a requirement? I agree with the requirement situation.
Oh, that would be probably a different ordinance. We'd have to put that in, but I have no problem looking at finding where that would be at and know if you can find where that's at, where we have to put something like that to require.
Yeah, I can pull it up. I think that so in our buffer ordinance, for certain uses along arterial roads, we have a requirement.
I think we're even thinking if I'm trying to read Commissioner Shea's mind here, even residential, requiring trees in residential park strips to be put in. Was I correct with that?
Correct. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, we have a clause. We amended the landscaping requirements recently to say you don't have to put grass in park strips so that we can unlock the free money for the Flip Your Strip program.
Right.
But yeah, we don't have a requirement.
But maybe you can instead of putting lawn in, you can put trees in.
Yeah, you can do the trees, but we don't require them.
Right. And that's where we're wondering if maybe we could want to look into something like that of requiring.
Yeah, how about, there's not a big hurry. I could put together a list of the different zones and what is currently required. And if you want, I could look at the list of trees in each one of these categories and see which ones are available at like J&J.
Okay.
Or if there's other ones that we should add or take out.
You could look at just the local nurseries. I know there's the one.
Yeah, because some of these
Valley in South Ogden and
some of these aren't really that common to be planted. So we could reevaluate that list.
We went and bought some last year, and a lot of these are difficult to even find in the local nurseries. Okay, so it sounds like we're good with the 20, 30, 50 distance wise, and then we'll look at some other options of how we can put more trees require more trees in the.
Yeah, and part of that, there's, the buffer does say if there's a, commercial up against a arterial collector road, then we have to have so many, that's a certain buffer type.
Yep.
Where we would say, a residential up against a local road.
Yeah.
What is that buffer type? Would like to see. We have some options there.
Yeah, we don't currently have a buffer required for stuff on a local road. Usually it's like if it's on a major thoroughfare.
Well, maybe that's something you can take a look at and come back with a recommendation for us, or at least some talking points we can discuss.
Sure.
Okay, anything else on the street trees? Okay, next item is the legislative recap.
You should have in front of you just a little 2-page handout that I delivered just before the meeting began. The legislature passed almost 600 bills this year. You probably heard that and that it was a record. I went through those 600 bills and identified about 180, which affect Syracuse City and generally cities in general. And then I went through that list and narrowed it down to 15 because I knew you didn't have 4 hours you wanted to spend on this topic tonight. Let me just hit them briefly, and there are a couple of them that are clearly going to require more discussion at a later date. House Bill 36 is the Open and Public Meetings Act that we talked about. Notably, it changes several of the definitions. The terms that you're used to will now be different. And we are required, as we always have been, to have an annual Open and Public Meetings Act training. The chair is now responsible to make sure that that gets done and gets scheduled. So I'm willing to do that anytime you want to do it. We did it for the city council about a month ago.
Let me know whenever you're ready with all the new changes and we can do it.
Okay, I'm ready anytime you are. So next time you want to put it on an agenda, let's do it.
Next meeting then.
Fine. Notably, one of the issues we talked about tonight, anchor location used to mean the location from whence the electronic meeting begins. Now it's the location where you usually meet, and none of you have to be here when you're holding an electronic meeting. You used to have something like at least the chair and X number of members, if I recall correctly. Now you can all be in Hawaii and Alaska and California and Greece and wherever you need to be. So there are several changes like that. Oops, took my finger off the button. That's the Open and Public Meetings Act. Next one is House Bill 153, child care revisions. As Ms. Lanning indicated tonight, there's now an option for certain child care providers not to get the certificate that used to be required of all of them. However, if you don't get the certificate, there are some funding ramifications that go along with that. So they have the option not to do the licensing with the state, but if they don't do the licensing, there are some downsides for not doing that licensing. House Bill 188, modifications relating to the use of land. This says once the city issues a building permit, it can't come along and change the rules after the building permit has been issued.
What is the airspace? It mentioned limits the ability to require airspace.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that airspace thing is. I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
House Bill 241, clean energy. The term renewable energy has been the term that's been used in the Utah Code for several years. We're now changing the words renewable energy to clean energy everywhere that it appears in the Utah Code. House Bill 256, there are certain requirements if you're within 5,000 feet of military land. I put that in before I bothered to measure. I don't think there's any military land within 5,000 feet of Syracuse. Clearly, that bill will affect Roy, Clinton, Sunset, Layton, Clearfield, and it just misses our corner of 1,000 West and SR 193. We're just a little beyond 5,000 feet. Property rights ombudsman. If you get if a person files for a decision from the ombudsman and wins at the ombudsman level and then has to go to court to win again because the city says, well, we don't really care what the ombudsman said. If that person wins again in court, now they're entitled to recover their attorney's fees and costs and even some damages if they can prove them. So it just ups the ante for cities to comply with the ombudsman's decisions. House Bill 297, the Bee Inspection Act, says that cities cannot adopt more stringent requirements for beekeeping than the state provides.
I had a question about that one. Because I was reading through that. Are we currently more restrictive on that than the Utah Code?
Do we even have any?
Yeah. Yeah. We currently require a conditional use permit. I think there's like fly zones and water and all kinds of stuff. So like this kind of renders our conditional use permit requirement moot. Yeah, just outdated.
So is that something we just take out of the ordinance then?
Yeah, I think the next steps here is going to be like some sort of batch ordinance amendment. It's like, hey, here's all these ordinances that we need to change after this last legislative session. We can just overload you guys with like a whole pile of it.
The next one is House Bill 449, Pedestrian Safety and Facilities Act. Currently, the law says that you can use your Class C road funds to provide for pedestrian safety issues like trails overpasses, underpasses, et cetera. This adds bicyclists to the list. And in fact, requires that whenever a city or a county is considering a transportation project, they now have to consider bicycle safety as one of the factors that they look at. The next one is the elephant in the room. That's House Bill 476, the municipal land use regulation modifications. It addresses everything there is to address in land use. And this will be the one where I think Noah's just referred to. We've got to go through this one with a fine tooth comb, find out everything that requires us to change. There's one of these bills every year in the legislature, and this year it just happens to be 476.
Is this the same one where they're trying to not, encourage more single family, smaller homes, starter homes, if you will?
That's coming up.
Oh, that's not this one. That's another one then.
House Bill 507, construction amendments. There are a few exceptions, but it generally prohibits municipalities from adopting water quality regulations that are more restrictive than the federal regulations. Senate Bill 13, education entity amendments, requires local governments, which includes cities, to consider home-based micro schools and micro education entities within all zoning districts. I don't even know what those two things are.
I was going to ask, what does that mean?
Mini schools, I think, but I'll take a
Is that
look at
home
it.
schools or is that?
I've heard of some examples of this. It's pod learning. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but it's basically the idea of doing homeschooling, but you do it in pods with different groups throughout your neighborhood or.
Whoops.
They're called co-ops.
Yeah.
My kids are all homeschooled. It's a co-op.
It's a co-op.
Yeah.
The next one, Senate Bill 168. Here's one of the two that you were talking about, affordable building amendments. Now we'll have a statewide code for modular homes. The next one, Senate Bill 185, residential building inspection amendments. This one says if an applicant needs a building inspection and goes to the city and files the application and pays the fee, but the city can't get to it within 3 days, then the applicant can go out and hire a private building inspector and have that private building inspector conduct the inspection. Apparently, there were some cities somewhere who were dragging their feet. What we're doing is we are cooperating with West Haven, Kaysville, Syracuse,
Farmington.
where we have each, and we're in the process of appointing each other's building inspectors to be our pool. Each city has to create a pool. Do that with one finger. The applicant can choose from that pool. So what we're doing is saying, okay, for these 4 cities, we're going to band together. If you come to Syracuse and can't get it, then you either go to Kaysville or Farmington or West Haven. Their building inspector will get it done. And so we're in the process of drafting up an interlocal agreement that provides for that. And we'll have that looked at by our city council next Tuesday night.
Can I jump back to 168 for a minute? Where it talks about local or home ownership promotion zones. How do we, is that something we just somehow structure into our ordinances then? I think I know what it is, but
I'm not sure what it is yet. I've got to take more time and study it and figure it out. But that's one of the 2 bills that provides for these mini home complexes.
the impression, my reading of it and just listening to what they've talked about is I think that's some way to try and incentivize a developer to build starter homes, if you will. I don't know it's not the right terminology, but a smaller single family home that's more affordable to someone just starting as a family or whatever.
That might not otherwise be a profit making or a significant profit making venture for the developer. This allows them to recapture tax increment from the property taxes on those homes to help pay them back for their initial losses, if you will, in building the project.
Yeah.
Let's see, Senate Bill 214. Currently the law says that all cities have to adopt a resolution to achieve renewable energy by 2030. This repeals that. And then finally, Senate Bill 268, which is very similar to Senate Bill 185. This allows cities to create first home investment zones, which will be very similar, and again allows the developer to recapture that tax increment funding to offset the costs and the losses of building these smaller homes.
So what's the difference between 268 and 168? As far as those home ownership, first home investment zones?
I think 268 is for first time homeowners and 168 is broader than that, I think.
Okay.
But I will take a look at it.
Okay.
And 168 does seem to include modular building units, which is more of a mobile home on a foundation style, right?
Yep, modular homes, you would think of the modern version of the old double wide trailer, right? But much more modern and much better built.
Yeah.
I grew up in a trailer park. I have to say that, or my dad will roll over in his grave.
Yeah, the modular home technologies that I've seen, it's basically they're built in a factory, so it's a controlled environment.
Those are like the ones that we see driving down the highway where there's one half in front, one half in back.
And
Yeah,
maybe
they
3
don't-
other pieces as well.
Yeah, they don't look like a double wide trailer house
No,
anymore. They just look like a normal house.
In fact, for those that are members of the Church, Jesus Christ, there's the Helena, Montana temple was a modular temple. It was built in Alabama and then put together on site in Helena, Montana.
Right.
So Casper's the same way. Okay.
And there's actually quite a few worldwide that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think the state's just trying to figure out more ways to get affordable housing, and if you can build these things in a factory efficiently without weather delays and without waste, with all the tools and set the assembly line, you crank them out and maybe make them a little more affordable.
They're taking the Ford approach to building homes.
Yeah, the Model T home.
It looks like you've got some work cut out for you though.
Modular T home.
Indeed we do. And as I told someone a couple of hours ago, my goal is to get this one done before the next legislative session starts.
They sure gave enough this time to, I've told our legislator at one point that I think if there ought to be a rule that if you pass one bill, you have to rescind 2 other ones.
Good rules to live by.
So anyway, thank you very much. Anything else you want to bring up on the legislative session? No. Okay, thank you. Upcoming agenda items, Noah.
We have Earthworks site plan up on 193. They are still working on some last things, but I think they should be for next meeting. And then we have a second phase of the RC's Park West. Let's see, we have. No, I can't remember. That won't be next meeting, but it'll be the meeting after that.
Okay. Totally different. I mean, did Costco purchase the land then? Have they purchased that land down there, or is it they're still working through things there, or do you know?
I'm not sure. The city doesn't get involved with private transactions, but last I heard they were under contract and working on behalf of the family to do the zoning and the annexation stuff.
Okay.
Awesome.
I get asked that a lot too. So
yeah, I mean, it's looking good, but it's never done till it's done, like they say.
Okay. Anything else for commissioner reports? I have one thing that I think will make the city council happy. I was at I'm on the community council for Syracuse High. And at the last meeting last week, they told us that the land in front where they currently have like the detention basin that just grows weeds all the time, the district has informed them that they hope by next school year that will be a new parking lot for students. So I jokingly said so there'll be teacher, student, teacher, student. And they said, yeah, I just don't think about it that way though. But yeah, that's what the district has told them. That's their plan, is hopefully, I mean, they won't promise it, but hopefully by start of next school year, that will be a new parking lot.
Whoa.
They're gonna put the underground tubing in to still maintain the water.
Yeah, they'll have to do something to maintain it, or to pull it off side or something, put it into the sewer
Depends
system
on
or
if it's a
something.
retention or detention.
Yeah. Or it's just a weed patch. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with that. But I thought that was a good, I think this would be interested in knowing. So
Yeah, our code enforcement officer, I'm sure will appreciate that.
yes, give them more place to park. So they did also say that as part of that though, their incoming sophomore class is the biggest Syracuse High has ever had. And Syracuse is already the biggest school in the district by a considerable amount.
And why don't we have a marching band?
I'll let you bring it up with someone else. I don't know. Probably because I have a teacher who wants to do it.
Don't care.
I don't know. I know Clearfield High had one when I was there, and then they went away from it. And then the band teacher came, a new band teacher came in, wanted a marching band. They had one. He's left, and I don't know if they still have a marching band or not.
I was halfway joking because I know the new band teacher at Syracuse High School does actually want to do it.
Okay, well,
Just, like I said, it's just an itch I have to scratch.
that would then have her bring it up to the principal. The previous one didn't want to do one. Okay, anything else from commission reports or from the commission? Okay, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Thank you.
I would really like to, for someone to say no that one time.